That kind, yes, yes, of
this
course.
kind, or the make-believe kind, the kind that...
Have you ever wondered what happened behind Marvin Gaye's smooth voice and love songs? For years, one part of his story remained untold, until now. The mystery woman who shared a secret with him is finally speaking out. Her words reveal a side of Marvin fans never saw. What she says might change how you feel about this music icon. Get ready, because we're telling you everything you didn't know. The meeting that sparked a love story. It all began with a visit in 1973 that seemed ordinary, but would quietly shift the course of two lives. Janice Hunter was 17 when she stepped into the West Los Angeles recording studio. She was brought there by her mother, Barbara Hunter, and Ed Townsend, who was working closely with Marvin Gaye as a producer. The room was filled with soul music in progress, the kind of melodies that carried emotion without spoken words. At the time, Marvin Gaye was recording Let's Get It On, one of his most well-known albums. Surrounded by engineers and instruments, he was absorbed in the moment and the rhythm. Everything changed, though, when Janice walked in. Marvin looked up and saw her. That moment, quiet and unscripted, would leave a lasting impression on them both. Janice was calm and striking, young yet composed. She stood beside her mother, unaware that her presence alone had already captured the attention of one of the greatest soul artists of all time. According to the reports, Marvin was about 34 years old and still married to Anna Gordy. Maybe he forgot he had a wife when he saw Janice, so he couldn't look away. Before his eyes, Janice was like precious rubies, which might disappear if he blinked. A connection would soon become more profound in that simple exchange of glances. There was no dramatic gesture or grand entrance. It was simply energy, unmistakable and silent. Later, Marvin described how Janice gave him a sense of well-being that he hadn't felt in years. He was a man who had known passion, suffering, and fame. However, he was taken aback by how this young girl, who was elegant and fresh-faced, moved him. He was captivated by her beauty, how she carried herself, the calmness she brought into the noisy room, and the softness in her eyes. That day, the studio evolved into more than just a place of work. There, inspiration and attraction came together for the first time. As producers and engineers shuffled around, Marvin's heart was developing something more delicate. He started to regard Janice as more than just a guest. She immediately became a muse in his mind, someone whose very presence evoked the most creative aspects of him, and that feeling would follow him beyond the studio walls. For Janice, the meeting was overwhelming in its simplicity. She had no idea what was unfolding in that moment. She had not come to impress anyone. She had no clue she would be remembered as the woman who quietly walked into Marvin Gaye's life and left a mark he would never shake. To her, it was just a visit with her mother and a family friend. But to Marvin, it was the beginning of something new. That first encounter did not come with promises or plans. It came with quiet glances, shared curiosity, and unspoken energy. Marvin later said he felt something pure that day, something real. From that day forward, Janice would become silent in his thoughts. That one meeting changed everything. The man known for turning pain into poetry had found a new feeling to explore, a new story to tell, and a new face to inspire it all. Additionally, the timing of their meeting contributed immensely to their chemistry. Marvin was working on songs that expressed longing, desire, and emotional depth. He was already putting his soul into the music. Meeting Janice, however, provided him with something specific to hold on to. Interestingly, she became the face of the emotions he was attempting to express. After he met Janice, the potent album he was recording, Let's Get It On, took on a new form. Although she might not have realized it then, Marvin's gaze indicated that her influence would soon appear in his lyrics. Despite being brief and straightforward, this meeting was the first step towards something bigger. Nothing was said, and no romance was formed immediately, just a sense that something had changed. Marvin went back to his work, but he did not forget her. And Janice, though quiet and unsure of what had happened, had just stepped into the pages of a story that would eventually unfold in music, memory, and emotion. It all began in a studio filled with sound, where two people from very different worlds exchanged a moment that neither could fully explain. This gathering ignited something tender and electrifying, which would reverberate over time in the form of stories, songs, and silent looks that people would remember long after the music had stopped. However, Marvin Gaye was already married, even though they fell in love at first sight. His wife, Anna Gordy, had stood by him through the highs and lows of his early career. Now, with a new young woman suddenly entering his life and lighting a fire in his soul, one has to wonder, how did Anna feel watching the man she loved become enchanted by someone else? What was going through her mind as Marvin drifted further away? And was Janice able to hold on to Marvin after realizing she was his mistress? Keep watching to find out. His mistress versus his legal wife. Before becoming known as Marvin Gaye's mistress, Janice Hunter was a beautiful young woman from a modest background. Born in 1955 to a black jazz musician father and a white mother who worked as a singer, Janice carried a unique look that caught attention anywhere she went. At 17, her life changed dynamically after her encounter with Marvin Gaye. Janice was already familiar with the music scene when she met Marvin because of her family's ties. But nothing prepared her for the world of celebrity, love, and chaos ahead. Marvin, who was older and already married to Anna Gordy, was battling his issues and the pressures of success and expectations. Then, unexpectedly and without warning, young and impressionable Janice walked fearlessly and ignorantly into that storm. Though it started as casual conversations and quiet glances, their relationship quickly became more significant and beautiful. He was captivated by Janice's youthful innocence, her softness, and her energy. She gave him a sense of purpose when he was struggling with addiction and despair. Anna said, "I first met Janice while working with Marvin on his biography, Divided Soul. She was 23 at the time. We were at Marvin's parents' house in mid-city Los Angeles, filled with tension and quiet sadness." In an interview, Janice revealed that her lover always had mood swings, stating that he could be sweet one moment and distant in the next. But despite his strange attitude, she was there, trying to repair their connection, hoping he would return to her the way he used to be. She carried herself with grace but also held a weight in her eyes, the kind that comes from loving someone who is always halfway gone. Anna Gordy had long been hearing whispers about her husband staying out late, and about a young girl who had become too familiar with his world. She initially ignored them, believing in the strength of her marriage and the years they had spent building a life together. But the whispers got louder. One afternoon, Anna decided to confront her fear and followed Marvin to one of his studio sessions. That was the day she saw Janice in person. The moment was surreal. Anna was not a woman given to emotional outbursts, but seeing Janice beside her husband broke something inside her. Janice looked nothing like her. She was younger and softer, with wide eyes that didn't understand the damage already done. There was no shouting, slapping, or dramatic scene, just silence. Anna walked past Janice, held Marvin's gaze for a second, and walked out. That silence said everything. Unbelievably, the romance between Marvin and his newly found lover continued despite Anna's warnings and threatening. Instead, it gained strength. Marvin's personal life started to be reflected in his music. His relationship with Janice inspired songs like "If I Should Die Tonight" and "You Sure Love to Ball." He was attempting to turn confusion into poetry. However, nothing was as romantic behind the scenes as the record suggested. Janice gave birth to two of Marvin's children. She believed at times that she had won his heart completely. But Marvin was always floating between worlds, between his past and present, between loyalty and desire, between the wife who knew him best and the mistress who made him feel young again. Anna eventually filed for divorce in 1975, after years of trying to keep the pieces together. It was a quiet ending to a loud love story. But was Marvin to be blamed for all this? Was there more to his story than what we heard? What attracted him to an innocent-looking 17-year-old when he was already married to someone else? And what impact did his new relationship have on his reputation? Let's find out. Marvin's personal life and music career. Marvin Gaye was born Marvin Pence Gaye Jr. in Washington, D.C. on April 2, 1939. From a young age, Marvin's life was shaped by a complex mix of religion, music, and hardship. His father was a strict Pentecostal minister, and the Gaye household was highly disciplined. Despite his difficult upbringing, music provided Marvin with a haven. He found comfort in singing and playing musical instruments, particularly the piano and drums. As a young boy, he started singing in church, and it was there that his voice was recognized as something special. The older Marvin got, the more he loved music. After joining several doo-wop groups in high school, he quickly attracted the attention of music producers. Fortunately, his big break came when he signed with Motown Records in the early 1960s. Marvin immediately became one of the label's biggest stars there. He made a name for himself in the music industry with hits like How Sweet It Is, To Be Loved by You, and Ain't That Peculiar, which showcased his smooth and soulful voice. Marvin's ability to blend emotional depth with musical innovation made him stand out. His work in the 70s took a more political and spiritual tone. In 1971, his groundbreaking album, What's Going On, was inspired by America's social unrest and chaos. The song spoke of war, poverty, and injustice, offering a deeply personal and powerful reflection on the state of the world. That album alone shifted the course of soul music forever. Marvin was a trailblazer throughout his career. Staying in one lane never satisfied him. He studied freedom, spirituality, love, and suffering. While Here My Dear was honest and unvarnished, his album, Let's Get It On, revealed a more sensuous and private side. His vulnerability in writing, producing, and singing gave the impression that he spoke straight to the hearts of those who heard him. Even though he was famous, Marvin had internal conflicts. He was quiet, contemplative, and frequently tormented. According to those close to him, he was a perfectionist who constantly aimed for a deeper musical quality. He struggled with inner suffering and self-doubt, which occasionally took him down dark pathways. Nevertheless, he kept making songs that touched millions of people. His voice came to represent vulnerability, passion, and defiance. Marvin was a very spiritual man away from the spotlight. He frequently discussed God and the effectiveness of prayer. Despite his troubles, he found solace in isolation and meditation. Occasionally, he would withdraw to secluded locations to write and contemplate. He felt that music could heal him as well as others. Many of his most memorable songs are influenced by this conviction. He also had a great sense of style and charisma. His performances were filled with emotion, and he had a natural ability to connect with audiences. Whether he was singing about heartbreak or hope, people believed every word. Despite the rosy and loving public appearances, things began falling apart between Marvin and his muse, Janice. The breakup. At first glance, Marvin and Janice appeared to be the perfect couple. Their chemistry was undeniable, their public appearances always painted the picture of unity, and their laughter often lit up rooms. Friends and fans admired the effortless way they seemed to complement each other. In an unexplainable manner, Janice and Marvin seemed destined for a long-term collaboration. Their bond was strong, and they both had a passion for music. Eventually, the couple had 2 children, Frankie Gaye and Nona, whom they both loved and spoiled. Once their house was a place of comfort, music, and lighthearted laughing. Behind the scenes, however, the situation was less than perfect. The demands of popularity, touring, and creativity started to wear Marvin down as his music career took off. Janice, meanwhile, started having emotional problems. She battled bouts of depression, quietly enduring waves of sadness while still trying to be the glue that held the family together. It wasn't easy for her. Her sense of loneliness increased due to the stress of raising their kids primarily by herself, and the developing emotional gap between her and Marvin. She yearned for emotional support and stability, but Marvin's world accelerated. Marvin was frequently away from home due to his intense love of music. Unending rehearsals, spontaneous performances, and late-night studio sessions were commonplace. His role at home diminished as his talent blossomed. He grew increasingly aloof, preferring to create and perform instead of spending time with his family. Janice tried to comprehend the rigors of his work, but feeling like a loser all the time was extremely painful. Their emotional gap grew until it was too great for them to overcome, and the once present love that united them appeared to fade into the background as arguments increased in frequency. Also, Janice struggled with the knowledge that the man she loved was vanishing, and her mental health issues worsened. She still believed in the value of their bond and wanted to fight for their family, but Marvin's actions often suggested otherwise. His absence was not just physical, but emotional too. He rarely acknowledged her pain or the sacrifices she made to keep their household running. The turning point came in the late 70s, and the distance between them was undeniable. They had developed into 2 completely different people living under the same roof. They both painfully realized they could no longer continue after multiple attempts to save what remained. That year, they split up in a low-key manner without the usual commotion that follows celebrity splits. The actual process of their separation was not too complicated because they were not legally married, but the psychological wounds it caused were far from straightforward. It marked the close of a chapter that had been both joyful and painful for Janice. She progressively created a life free from Marvin's shadow by concentrating on her kids and emotional well-being. Marvin used the breakup as a time to think things through. Even though he kept giving his all to music, the death of his family had a lasting impact. Their tale served as a reminder that unfulfilled needs and misplaced priorities can cause even the most lovely relationships to fall apart. Still, their breakup wasn't marked by hostility. It was a quiet dissolution of a once vibrant bond. Friends say there was no bitterness, only sadness. They had loved each other, that much was certain. But love, as they both discovered, sometimes isn't enough to hold people together. The challenges they faced as individuals eventually overshadowed the joy they once shared. Their children, though affected by the split, remained a shared priority. Marvin and Janice did their best to co-parent respectfully and maintain a little bit of normalcy. Despite everything, Marvin and Janice's foundation of care never completely crumbled. They respected each other as parents, even if their romantic relationship had ended. In the years that followed, their paths diverged. Marvin continued to make music and navigate the highs and lows of fame, while Janice sought peace and healing away from the spotlight. Janice's memoir and demise. You know how nosy a lot of people are, especially when it's about celebrities, right? Almost everyone wants to know why stuff happens, when, and how it happened. After their separation, rumors started circulating about Marvin's infidelity and addiction, highlighting these two factors as the reason behind Janice and Marvin's separation. As time went on, people's curiosity only grew louder. Janice finally decided to share her side of the story in a tell-all memoir titled After the Dance: My Life with Marvin Gaye. Janice didn't hold anything back in this raw and deeply personal book. She painted a picture of her life with Marvin from the beginning, including the charm, the passion, the music, and sadly, the heartbreak. What struck readers most was that she detailed the emotional toll the relationship took on her, especially during the years leading up to their split. In the memoir, she confirmed what many had suspected all along. Marvin's increasing addiction to substances and alcohol made it extremely difficult to hold their relationship together. It was not just about late nights at the studio or missed family dinners. It became about trust, safety, and emotional well-being. According to Janice, the man who once made her feel like the most loved woman in the world had slowly become a stranger. The highs of Marvin's creativity and genius were now constantly followed by lows that confused Janice. At some point, she felt like she was no longer living in love, but simply surviving in a storm. While Marvin was battling inner demons, he seemed to lose sight of how much Janice was hurting. In her memoir, she wrote about nights when he would disappear without notice, days when he would shut down emotionally, and arguments that ended in silence instead of resolution. And, even though they were not legally married, their emotional bond was strong enough to make the separation devastating. The lack of a formal divorce procedure did not alleviate the heartbreak. The absence of legal proceedings made the split feel even more personal and unfinished. In her memoir, Janice revealed that she struggled for years to find closure. She described waking up some mornings feeling strong and independent, only to break down later that evening while listening to one of Marvin's love songs. She was torn between memories of the man she once loved and the truth of who he had become. Readers could sense her pain, but they also saw her strength as she detailed her journey of healing and self-discovery. Beyond the heartbreak, Janice also spoke about the public pressure she felt. Being Marvin Gaye's longtime partner came with attention she never asked for. After the separation, she couldn't walk down the street without someone asking her what went wrong. She was constantly being compared to Marvin's other women everywhere she went, and even in tabloids, making it hard for her to move on. Sadly, she started feeling lost and without an identity, not just in her relationship with Marvin, but also in the public eye. Yet, like a determined high school student who longs for high grades, Janice Hunter did her best to rebuild her seemingly broken relationship. She poured her heart into writing, therapy, and reconnecting with friends she had distanced herself from during the relationship. The memoir was a huge step in that process. It gave her the voice she felt she had lost during the chaos of her love life. It reminded people that behind the headlines and paparazzi photos, a real woman had loved deeply and gotten hurt. But healing isn't always a straight path. After releasing her memoir, Janice received both praise and backlash. While many women applauded her for being brave and honest, others accused her of trying to tarnish Marvin's legacy. Some fans felt uncomfortable seeing their beloved artist in such a flawed light. Janis never seemed angry at these reactions. In interviews, she said she was simply telling the truth as she experienced it. She wasn't trying to destroy Marvin's image, but to reclaim her voice. Sadly, Janis's later years were marked by both reflection and sadness. Although she never publicly regretted her time with Marvin, it was clear that the relationship left a mark on her that never fully healed. She wasn't one to constantly seek the spotlight. Instead, she lived a more private life, occasionally showing up at Marvin Gaye tribute events and quietly supporting causes related to mental health and women's well-being. On December 3rd, 2022, she passed away at the age of 66. Her demise was also unexpected. There was no national outrage, no huge headlines. However, the loss was profound for those who had read her memoir, followed her journey, and understood her suffering. It appeared that a chapter in the Marvin Gaye story that many had ignored for too long was ending. Janis had been more than just Marvin's girlfriend. She had been his inspiration, his rock, his haven, and unfortunately, his victim. In a way, her life was a lesson in the complexities of love, especially when addiction and fame are involved. It illustrates how untreated personal issues can put even the most lovely partnerships to the test, and her memoir lives on as a powerful record of resilience. Through this memoir, Janis conveyed to the world that sometimes choosing oneself is the most challenging yet courageous thing to do, and that love is not always enough. Her narrative still resonates in the hearts of many who have experienced the journey of sincerely loving someone and losing themselves, even though her voice may no longer be heard. Mystery Mistress rumors and Marvin's tragic demise. Marvin Gaye was a man whose voice could melt hearts and whose lyrics could stir souls. He was a musical genius who gave the world unforgettable hits like Sexual Healing, What's Going On, and Let's Get It On. But behind the smooth voice and public persona was a storm of turmoil, passion, addiction, and tangled relationships that haunted him until the very end. After releasing his album, Here My Dear, which detailed the pain of his failed marriage to Anna Gordy and alluded to his entanglements with Janis, many fans believed Marvin had laid his past bare. But whispers of a mystery mistress continued to linger. During his relationship with Janis, and even long after they had separated, there were rumors of other women in Marvin's life. Some believed he had been romantically involved with one of his background singers, while others speculated about secret affairs with fans and industry insiders. The whole truth may never be known, but what was clear is that Marvin's relationships were complicated and often overlapping. This elusive mystery mistress, whose identity was never confirmed, was said to be present during Marvin's final years. She was allegedly much younger, possibly even in her 20s, while Marvin was already in his 40s. Some insiders claimed she was emotionally supportive, trying to help Marvin battle his demons, while others said she enabled his destructive habits. Whether she was a comfort or a complication remains uncertain. Her name was never revealed in any official biography, and Marvin never acknowledged her publicly. While Marvin tried to piece together some sense of peace in his private life, his struggles with drug addiction and depression deepened. He began to isolate himself more frequently and depended heavily on complex substances and alcohol. His once radiant energy was noticeably dimmed even in interviews and public appearances. His brilliance remained, but the man was battling internal darkness. Despite the personal chaos, Marvin's legacy in the music world continued to grow. He redefined soul music, blending R&B with profound political commentary and emotional vulnerability. His 1971 album, What's Going On, is still hailed as one of the most influential records ever. He inspired generations of artists, from Prince to Usher to Alicia Keys, who admired his ability to channel pain into art. His voice, marked by both sorrow and sensuality, was and still is instantly recognizable. But Marvin never got the chance to find true peace or redemption. On April 1st, 1984, just one day before his 45th birthday, Marvin Gaye was shot and called by his father, Marvin Gaye Sr., in their Los Angeles home. The news sent shockwaves through the world. How could a man who had given so much joy and meaning through his music meet such a violent and heartbreaking end? Several years after his demise, questions continued to swirl around his relationships. The mystery mistress was never seen or heard from again. There were no tell-all interviews or public mourning, and she vanished as quietly as she had entered the narrative. Some people believe she was a figment of gossip, while others insist she was real and simply wanted nothing to do with the spotlight. Marvin's demise left many pieces of his life unfinished and unexplained, especially concerning heart matters. Reflecting on Marvin's love life paints a complex picture. He married Anna Gordy, and then, during their rocky marriage, he became involved with Janice Hunter, who was only 17 when their relationship began. Later, there were rumors of yet another woman in the shadows. Each relationship seemed to overlap with the next, leaving trails of hurt and confusion in their wake. Still, his legacy remains. Marvin was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, honored with posthumous awards, and celebrated through tributes by some outstanding musicians. His music continues to live on, streaming through speakers, soundtracking love stories, heartbreaks, and moments of reflection for millions across the globe. But in light of everything we know, a question lingers like a haunting melody that refuses to fade. Suppose Marvin Gaye, the soulful icon of love and vulnerability, could fall for a 17-year-old girl while still married to Anna Gordy, his wife, and the sister of Motown's founder. What else might have been happening behind the scenes? The image of Marvin as a passionate romantic becomes more complicated when viewed through this lens. The possibility of a second or third mistress quietly orbiting his world doesn't feel far-fetched. It begins to seem almost inevitable. For a man whose music often spoke of pain, longing, and desire, perhaps those same emotions played out messily in his real life, tangled in secrecy, heartbreak, and choices that many never knew about. What do you think about this story? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more engaging content. We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Bye for now.